Alright, what's good? It's your boy AJ back again with another video, and today we're making Carmelo Anthony and LeBron James swap careers. So let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so in year one for Bron and Melo, they played great individually, you know what I'm saying? They had a good rookie season. And they ended up being all-stars and shit too as well. But I say individually for a reason, because they team not so much. They both ended up finishing with a 37-45 record, and they missed out on the playoffs this year. And like I was saying earlier, they both had a great rookie season. But Bron ended up winning Rookie of the Year once again. And honestly, it made sense. You know what I'm saying? It was well deserved. But let's see what they can do next year. Alright, now we're in the 2004-05 NBA season. And Bron had another solid year once again. And although the Nuggets did play better, they made some improvements. They ended up being a 9th seed in the West, finishing with a 40-42 record. But over in the East, Melo and the Cavs, they had way more success. They ended up being the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference, finishing with a 46-36 record. And Melo ended up leading the boys to the playoffs, you know what I'm saying, in year 2. But that ain't it, though. Melo ended up winning MVP on top of that in year 2. Going crazy. He was in his bag. You see the stats? He was going crazy. I was not expecting this out of him in year 2. I'm not going to lie. But hey, we on to the playoffs. So in the first round of playoffs this year, Melo and the Cavs were going against the 76ers with AI, Chris Webber, Andre Iguodala, and they was dominating at first. They went up 3-0 in the series, bro. And then it seemed like they didn't want to win no more because the Cavs started coming back, bro. And the big reason for that was because of Carmelo Anthony. He really put them boys in his bag. He was carrying. He was averaging 36 points per game, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, and he was able to force a game 7. And when game 7 started, things were pretty good at first. It was a close game, back and forth, but in the end, Philly ended up getting it done this time, and they eliminated Melo and the Cavaliers from the playoffs. Now, in the 2005-06 NBA season, Bron came back playing great as expected, but the Nuggets started to get it together too, because now they end up being the 6th seed in the West, finishing with a 44-38 record, and they clinched the playoff spot. Now, over in the East, Melo and the Cavs started the season playing great. They ended up being the 2nd seed in the Eastern Conference all the way up into the All-Star break, but unfortunately, Melo ended up getting injured right after the All-Star break with a pinched nerve, and the Cavs ended up dropping down to the 5th seed in the East, but on the bright side, Melo should be back for the first round of the playoffs. In the first round of playoffs this year, Melo and the Cavs ended up going against AI and the 76ers once again, and even though Melo wasn't 100% still, he was still hooping in his bag. First game, he dropped 46 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. And then in game 6, he had another 40-point game, which helped the Cavs end up beating the 76ers in the first round this year. Bron and the Nuggets ended up going against the Houston Rockets in the first round, who was missing Tracy McGrady this series. And the Nuggets took advantage of that because they ended up beating the Houston Rockets 4-2 this series. And now they on their way to the second round. In the second round of playoffs this year, the Nuggets ended up going against the 2nd seed Phoenix Suns, and the Cavaliers ended up going against the 1st seed Miami Heat. And although Bron was hooping and Melo was hooping, they was having a great series. Their teams just wasn't good enough to get past their opponents, so they both ended up losing in the second round. The Cavs got swept by the Miami Heat, and the Nuggets ended up losing that series 4-1 to the Phoenix Suns. But let's see what they can do next season. Next season, the Nuggets made some moves, and they was able to pick up AI and add him to the team. Even though him and Bron played great this season, the Nuggets still couldn't get past the second round of the playoffs this year. And for Melo and the Cavs, they pretty much went through the same thing, except they lost in the first round of the playoffs. In the 2007-08 NBA season, things started to really click for the Nuggets, bro. Everything was going their way. They ended up being the 1st seed in the West, finishing with a record of 66-16, bro. But for Melo and the Cavs, it was not a good season at all. They ended up missing the playoffs this year. They was the 9th seed, finishing with a record of 35-47. And it's tough because Melo's playing great, but it's only so much he can do. In the playoffs, Bron and the Nuggets continue playing at a high level. In the first round, they ended up going against the Dallas Mavericks, who they ended up beating 4-2 in that series. And in the second round, they went against the Hornets, who they ended up beating 4-0 in that series. Then in the conference finals, they went against the number 2 seed San Antonio Spurs, who they beat 4-0 in that series as well. And then in the NBA Finals, the Nuggets ended up going against the Boston Celtics, the number 1 seed in the East. And this series went downhill quick for the Nuggets because they never stood a chance. The Boston Celtics was dominating the whole series from the start to the finish. The Celtics ended up sweeping Bron and the Nuggets in the NBA Finals, and I ain't gonna lie, I wasn't expecting them to get swept, but the Celtics did have a better team. I just didn't think the Nuggets was gonna get swept, but it is what it is. We on the next season. In the 2009-10 NBA season, the Nuggets ended up making another trade once again. This time they traded AI for Chauncey Billups, and honestly, Bron and the Nuggets had another great season just like they did last year with AI. They ended up being the 1st seed in the West, finishing with a record of 64-18. But what surprised me was Melo and the Cavs. I expected them to have a good season, but they really went crazy this year, bro. They ended up being the number 1 seed in the East, finishing with a record of 67-15. So as you can see, this has been a great season for both of them, but even better for Bron because he won MVP as well. But let's go ahead and get into the playoffs and see what they can do. Alright, so in the first round of playoffs this year, Bron and Melo both had success this year. The Nuggets ended up going against the Clippers, and they ended up beating them 4-0 in that series. And the Cavaliers ended up going against the Indiana Pacers, who they ended up beating 4-2 in that series. But in the second round, the Nuggets started off great once again, dominating. Actually, they was up 3-0 going against the Houston Rockets. But the Rockets ended up winning one game, and that definitely boosted their confidence because they came back and forced to game 7. And in game 7, they ended up winning and eliminating the Nuggets out of the playoffs. And for Melo and the Cavs in the second round, they ended up going against the Detroit Pistons with AI. And they ended up going to game 7 in that series as well, except they was actually down. They ended up forcing game 7. And unlike the Nuggets, they was able to win in game 7. And now they on their way to the Eastern Conference Finals. And now the Cavs make their way back to the Conference Finals once again. This time going against the Toronto Raptors, who the Cavs ended up beating beating 4-1 in this series, and now Melo is about to make his first finals appearance in his career. So let's see how it go. Now in the finals this year, it didn't really go how the Cavs wanted it to go at all. I'm gonna be honest with you. They did win 2 games, but T-Mac was just too much to handle. They couldn't stop, bro. I'm gonna be honest with you. They ended up losing the series 4-2. And yeah, it's tragic, but it is what it is though, you know? In the offseason, Melo ended up making an announcement saying that he was taking his time to South Beach to team up with D-Wade and Chris Bosh. And as expected, it was going well. But he wasn't the only one who had to change the scenery this season. After Bron playing 50 games with the Nuggets in his 2010-11 season, he ended up making his way over there to the New York Knicks, who are unfortunately ass right now with a record of 19-30, but he gonna help fix that though. So let's see how the rest of the season go. Melo and the Heat ended up finishing the season being the 2nd seed in the Eastern Conference, and Bron was able to lead the Knicks, who are now the 8th seed in the East, to the playoffs. In the first round of playoffs this year, LeBron and the Knicks ended up going against the #1 seed Chicago Bulls with D Rose, and the Knicks ended up winning the series 4-2. Melo and the Heat ended up going against the Indiana Pacers, who ended up forcing a game 7, but the Heat ended up still winning that series, and now they only wait to the second round. In the second round, the Knicks ended up going against the Boston Celtics, who they ended up beating 4-2 in this series, and then it was the same thing for Miami Heat when they went against the Orlando Magic. And now Melo and Bron meet in the conference finals this year. Now this series was real competitive, back and forth for Bron and Melo the whole time, bro. They was going at it all the way up into game 7, where the Miami Heat big 3 went crazy. They all had 30 points, bro. D-Wade, Bosh, Melo, they all had 30, and it wasn't too much Bron could do. And then unfortunately, the Knicks ended up getting sent home that series, but Melo is on his way back to the finals once again, so let's see what he could do. In the finals, the Miami Heat went against a young OKC team, and honestly, although they did put up a good fight, the Miami Heat was just too much for OKC to handle, and they ended up being OKC 4-2 in this series. And just like that, Melo has got his first championship with the Miami Heat. Now, he didn't win Finals MVP, that ended up going to D-Wade, but we'll take it. He got the championship, but let's see what they can do next season. In the 2011-12 NBA season, Melo and the Miami Heat got out to a good start once again, dominating all their competition, and they ended up being the 1st seed in the East, finishing with a record of 69-13. And Bron and the Knicks was having a way better season this year. They ended up being the 3rd seed in the East, finishing with a record of 58-24. And now, on their way back to the playoffs. Alright, so in the beginning of the playoffs, everything was looking great for Bron and Melo, to be honest with you, and after the regular season they had, I almost expected them to meet in the conference finals once again. But it was one man who was standing in their way, and that man is Derrick Rose. My boy D Rose had other plans, because in the second round, he ended up going against LeBron and the Knicks, and although Bron was playing at a high level the whole series, D Rose and the Bulls was playing at an even higher level, because they ended up eliminating the New York Knicks from the playoffs in game 7. Melo and the Heat ended up going against the Chicago Bulls in the conference finals, and honestly, the Bulls got out to a great start. They ended up being up 3-1 in the series, but the Heat started to fight back after being down 3-1. In game 5, Melo and D-Wade was playing great until Melo ended up getting injured. Then it was downhill from there, and unfortunately the Heat ended up losing to the Chicago Bulls in that series. And man, I was definitely not expecting that, but hey, shout out D Rose. Alright, now in the 2012-13 NBA season, things were going great once again. Miami ended up being the #1 seed in the East, and the Knicks ended up being the 2nd seed in the East. But once again, Melo ended up getting injured. This time was a broken left ankle right before the playoffs. But Bron, on the other hand, he doing good. He's healthy, so let's see how he do in the playoffs. In the first round, Bron and the Knicks ended up going against the Toronto Raptors, who they ended up beating 4-2 in that series. And the Miami Heat ended up going against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they was able to hold it down while Melo was gone. And then in the second round, Melo finally made his return in game 3, where he dropped 30 points. And after that, the Brooklyn Nets knew it was over, because they ended up losing that series 4-1. But now the Knicks going up against the Chicago Bulls in the second round once again. And I ain't gonna lie, this is like deja vu, because once again, the Knicks was up, but D Rose and the Bulls ended up forcing a game 7 once again, and they won a game 7 once again. Like, you can't make this up, bro. They was up 3-1 and they still lost. And now we back to the conference finals once again. Now Melo and the Heat going against the Bulls again, but this time they was able to win the series. They ended up beating them boys 4-2, and I'm gonna be real with you, I thought they was gonna lose again. I thought they was gonna fumble it, but they didn't. Them boys got it done, and now they're on their way back to the NBA finals. In the finals, the Miami Heat are going against OKC, and honestly, this was terrible. Like, KD and Westbrook was terrorizing the Heat. They ended up sweeping them boys 4-0. Like, look at the score in game 4 when they swept them. Like, come on, gang, y'all couldn't win one game? Like just at least one. They went out bad. Next season was just like the previous years before, if I'm being honest. Once again, Bron and Melo helped lead their teams to the playoffs, but they ended up getting eliminated again. In the 2014-15 NBA season, Melo ended up making his way back to the Cleveland Cavaliers to team up with Kyrie Irving. And honestly, things was going well. They finished with a record of 55-27, and it was the 2nd seed in the East. Now, Bron and the Knicks, on the other hand, it wasn't too great. Now, they did make it to the playoffs, just barely made it. They ended up being an AFC, finished with a record of 40-42, and obviously due to the fact that Bron was carrying, you know what I'm saying, nothing different. But let's go ahead and get to the playoffs to see how it go. In the first round of playoffs this year, the Knicks ended up going against the Chicago Bulls, and as I expected, the Knicks lost 4-2 in this series, and they have been eliminated once again. Now, for Melo and the Cavs, they ended up going against the Charlotte Hornets, who ended up forcing a game 7, but The Cavs still ended up getting it done and they won. Now they on their way to the next round. In the second round of playoffs, the Cavs ended up going against the Washington Wizards, and Melo and Kyrie was going off in this series, and they ended up beating the Washington Wizards 4-1. And now they on their way to the conference finals. So in the conference finals, the Cavs ended up going against the Chicago Bulls, and at first it was not looking good because the Bulls ended up going up 3-1 in this series. But the Cavs ended up fighting back and they ended up forcing a Game 7, and in Game 7 they ended up winning. And now the Cavs on their way to the NBA Finals, so let's see if Melo can get his second ring. In the finals, the Cavs ended up going against OKC, a tough OKC team who was playing great at the beginning of the series. But in the end, the Cavaliers was the better team, and they showed it in Game 6 when they ended up winning the series. And now Melo has another ring. He got one in Miami, he got one in Cleveland now. But he didn't win Finals MVP once again, and it wasn't even Kyrie Irving this time. It was Kevin Love who was hooping. I ain't gonna lie, so he deserved it. But let's see if they can make it happen again next year. Now this season, Melo and the Cavs came back feeling great. They ended up finishing with a record of 63-19, being the second seed in the Eastern Conference. But the Knicks, on the other hand, it was terrible. Them boys was the 10th seed in the East, finished with a record of 34-48. And as you can see, Bron tired of this, bro. It's getting old, but some changes coming soon for him. So, just gotta be patient. But let's get into the playoffs. In the first round of playoffs this year, the Cavs ended up going against the Indiana Pacers, and they ended up beating them boys 4-1 in this series to advance to the second round. In the second round, the Cavs ended up going against the Chicago Bulls, and this series went to Game 7, and the Cavs did end up winning that series, and now they on their way back to the conference finals once again. In the conference finals, the Cavs ended up going against the Toronto Raptors, and honestly, they never stood a chance at all. I'm not gonna lie, they ended up getting swept 4-0, and the Cavs on their way back to the finals once again. And as you can see in the finals, the Cavs went against OKC again, and this time it was even easier than last year. And I'm really surprised because I thought OKC was gonna put up more of a fight than what they did, but it is what it is. The Cavs ended up beating them boys 4-1, and that's Melo's third ring right there on top of that. But he still didn't win Finals MVP. It went to Kyrie Irving this time, bro. And this is the one I thought that Melo deserved the whole time, but I guess it just ain't work out that way. But hey, we on the next season. In the 2016 through 17 NBA season, the Cavs came back playing good once again. It wasn't as good as last year. They ended up being the 5th seed in the East, finishing with a record of 48-34. But Bron and the Knicks came back going crazy. They had a great year. They ended up being the 1st seed in the Eastern Conference, finishing with a record of 60-22. And on top of all that, Bron won MVP in his bag. You see the stats? He was going crazy. I'm not gonna lie. He might get that ring this year. Alright, so the first round of playoffs this year was smooth. The Knicks ended up going against the Washington Wizards, who they ended up beating 4-1 in that series. And the Cleveland Cavaliers ended up going against the Philadelphia 76ers, who they ended up beating 4-2 in this series. Now, in the second round, Bron and Melo are finally facing off in the playoffs, bro. And honestly, individually, they both played great in this series. They both was putting up crazy numbers, especially Bron. I don't know if he went under 30 points throughout the whole series at all, period, bro. He was playing great, and D Rose was too. I gotta give him his props. He was having a great series as well. But although they did have a great series, they wasn't doing nothing with Kyrie and Melo. I'm gonna be honest with you. They was hooping, bro. And they ended up winning this series 4-1. And that's crazy, because I thought Bron was gonna get it done this year, but I was most definitely mistaken. That's my bad, but we on to the next round. In the conference finals, the Cavs ended up going against Paul George and the Indiana Pacers, and honestly, they started off the series hot. They was going crazy, but the Cavs was able to come back and force a Game 7, barely though, because Thaddeus Young almost sent them boys home. He was a couple seconds away from getting them up out of there, but the Cavs was able to get it done in Game 7, and now they are on their way back to the finals once again. Bro, now in the finals, I was really confused, because as you can see, the Cavs going against the Pelicans, and I didn't expect them to get this far, because they ended up beating the Warriors with KD and everything. Then they dog walked the Cavs in the finals, bro. They ended up beating the Cavs 4-1 in this series, which was most definitely unexpected. But hey, in the 2017 through 18 NBA season, Bron needed a new change of scenery, so he decided to go to Oklahoma to team up with Russell Westbrook and Paul George. And after they got their chemistry together, everything was going great. They ended up being the 2nd seed in the Western Conference, finishing with a record of 62-20. Now for Melo and the Cavs, it was a little shaky after losing Kyrie. Things was low-key all over the place, but after they made some trades and things changed, things started to look up for them as they made their way to the playoffs. In the first round, Melo and the Cavs went against the Washington Wizards, and they ended up beating them 4-1 in that series. Bron and OKC ended up going against the Portland Trailblazers again, and things was looking great once they went 2-0 in the series, but them bad shots started to fall again, and once they did, it was over with for OKC. They ended up losing the series 4-3, just like that. Once again, Bron took another L, this time in the first round. It's tragic. In the second round, the Cavs went against DeMar DeRozan and the 2nd seed Toronto Raptors, and as I expected, they ended up losing this series 4-2, and the Cavs were eliminated from the playoffs. Next season, Bron ended up changing teams once again. This time, he went to the Houston Rockets to team up with James Harden and Chris Paul. And honestly, things went well. They ended up being the 3rd seed in the Western Conference, finishing with a record of 60-22. And Melo ended up making his way to the Lakers this season. And honestly, they started off the season real hot, but then things started to slow down a little bit, and they ended up being the 7th seed in the Western Conference, finishing with a record of 50-32. In the first round, the Lakers ended up going against the 2nd seed Phoenix Suns, and they ended up beating them in Game 7 to win the series 4-3. Bron and the Rockets ended up going against the San Antonio Spurs in the first round, and after Bron dropped 75 points and 13 rebounds in Game 2, I knew there was no way them boys was going to lose, and they ended up winning the series 4-2 versus the San Antonio Spurs. In the second round, Bron and Melo ended up facing off once again, and the Lakers ended up striking first when they went up 2-0 in the series, but the Rockets wasn't gonna go out bad like that, especially Bron, and that's why in Game 6, Bron dropped 65 points and 10 rebounds to help the Rockets advance to the conference finals. In the conference finals, the Rockets ended up going against the #1 seed, Golden State Warriors, and this series was sweet for real. They ended up beating them boys 4-0 to advance to the NBA Finals. In the finals, Bron and the Rockets ended up going against the Milwaukee Bucks, a tough Milwaukee Bucks team that ended up forcing a Game 7. But in Game 7, James Harden and Bron was going off. They couldn't be stopped. They was dominating, and they helped lead the Rockets to a championship this year. So Bron got his first one now finally with the Houston Rockets. And Bron did not win Finals MVP. It ended up going to James Harden, but it could have went either way, to be honest with you. Next season, Bron went to Portland Trailblazers to team up with Damian Lillard, and it was a little shaky at first, but they got it together eventually, and they ended up being the 4th seed in the West, finishing with a record of 52-30. And for Melo and the Lakers, they just barely made the playoffs, finishing with a record of 41-41, being the 8th seed in the West. In the first round, Bron and the Trailblazers ended up going against the Clippers, and they ended up going to Game 7, where they ended up beating the Clippers 4-3 to advance to the second round. And for Melo and the Lakers, they ended up going against the #1 seed Denver Nuggets, and they was able to force in Game 7, but unfortunately they wasn't able to win, and now they are eliminated from the playoffs. In the second round, the Trailblazers went against the Nuggets, and they ended up beating them boys 4-1 in that series to advance to the conference final. In the conference finals, the Trailblazers ended up going against the Dallas Mavericks, so they ended up beating 4-2 in this series to advance to the finals. In the finals, the Trailblazers went against the Brooklyn Nets, and that series ended up going to Game 7. And in Game 7, the Brooklyn Nets ended up winning, but let's see if Bron and the Trailblazers can make a return next year and win. Alright, so in the 2020 through 21 NBA season, Bron and the Portland Trailblazers had a better year than they did last year. They ended up being the 2nd seed in the West, finishing with a record of 55-27. And for Melo and the Lakers, it was looking like the same as last year. They was the 8th seed. This year they finished with a record of 46-36. But let's see what they do in the playoffs. In the first round of playoffs this year, the Lakers went against the Utah Jazz, the #1 seed in the West. And although they did force a Game 7, the Lakers couldn't get it done, and the Utah Jazz ended up beating them, advancing to the second round. And for Bron and the Trailblazers, things started off smooth in the playoffs in the first 2 rounds. But once they got to the conference finals and they had to go against Utah, it was all bad. That AFC Lakers team put up a better fight than they did. They ended up losing this series 4-2, and now they are eliminated once again. And now in the 2021 through 2022 NBA season, Bron and Melo finally got the team up. And this season wasn't really as great as they hoped for it to be, but they did make it to the playoffs. They was the 6th seed in the West, finishing with a record of 47-35. And in the first round, they went against the Golden State Warriors, and it was terrible. Them boys ended up getting swept 4-0 in the first round. It's unfortunate, I'm not gonna lie. Alright, bro, so I ain't gonna lie, that was the last season we gonna do, because the 2022 through 23 NBA season, it was pointless. Lakers was first round exits once again. But Melo and Bron swapping careers went pretty well, you know what I'm saying? For Bron, it wasn't as good as his real life for him, but you know what I'm saying? It was good enough. You know, both won MVPs, both won championships. Melo won 2, Bron won 1. No finals MVPs, you know what I'm saying? But it is what it is, you know what I'm saying? They won. We're gonna take what we can get. But really, that's all I got for y'all today, bro. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, you know what I'm saying? Go ahead, leave a like, comment, all that other good stuff. I appreciate y'all coming through and rocking with me, you know what I'm saying? And y'all have a safe, blessed day, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, it's your boy Larry J. I'm out, y'all be smooth.